Oh,
All right. Hello again.
hello everyone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's podcast, which is brought to you this week by Speaking to the Manager and Beanballs.
Okay. I think I know what you've been listening to. This week's podcast is also brought to you by Wrong Ideas About Health Workers and More Important Things Than Living.
I'm your host, Madison.
I'm your other host, Jesse James. I have carrots.
I have a monstrosity,
Yeah.
which is a ball of airhead.
Madison has balled up.
That's
at least two, right?
Yeah, it's two. It's a green apple and a watermelon, I think.
Madison has crafted a warm, sticky planetoid out of mostly sugar.
I'm looking forward to biting into this like an apple.
I'm looking forward to that sound being transmitted.
It's horrible.
It does look like a bread ball.
Yeah. So that's kind of the texture.
Is there a addition or a redaction of quality when you have your hand scuzz deeply embedded into something like that?
Sorry, I'm trying not to like chew into the mic.
That's oddly considerate.
I actually did just wash my hands, so it should be minimal scuzz in my airhead ball. But I think it adds to it.
Okay.
I mean, I'd rather expose my body to as many germs and viruses as possible so it can get strong.
Yeah. Yep.
That's how that works.
That's how Sweden is doing it. Because I think they're just keeping the elderly and people with chronic conditions basically holed up, and everybody else is free to do what they want. They did decide to do that before people started saying there's a pretty decent chance that you can get reinfected. So
yeah.
maybe not the greatest plan, but I guess they wanted to try it where the UK, I feel, was probably smarter and saying, fuck off, Prime Minister, we're going to do something that seems scientifically sound for now.
Yeah.
To be fair, herd immunity is scientifically sound. It is also potentially extremely cruel. So unless you are using a vaccine to give a non-lethal way for people to develop the antibodies they need to become herd immune, there really isn't a good reason to do it with something that is just going to like take a certain amount of your population out.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, I do have one of my beverages for today. Hold on a moment. Forget what kind of. That's that. Just get this nice bottle up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That'll do.
Dang. Okay, well, I don't have anything to match that. I have water for right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to the liquor store probably later because I have a virtual happy hour scheduled with somebody.
Nice.
But as of right now, we have no alcohol in the house anymore.
I have a lot of alcohol because I don't drink very often. I usually drink here.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what we're doing on Fridays for watching, I will drink on Fridays, but it's not an often thing for me. And if we weren't having an excuse to, I probably just wouldn't, because that's not usually my my mode, I guess.
Yeah. I have used the situation as an excuse to drink, not every day, but pretty frequently. I like using the excuse to come up with different concoctions, but
yeah,
we don't really have anything at the moment. So today my concoction is water, which is probably for the best.
I do have water here as well. It's a pretty good one.
I like your setup. Your setup usually consists of like 3 different beverages, and I think that's how that should be.
I, in fact, have 3 different coasters here just for that reason at all times.
Yeah. I came prepared with my Airhead monstrosity and also Buffalo Blue cheese chips, which aren't great, to be honest.
Yeah, hello. I've had those. They're fine.
They're not. Every single time the Buffalo Blue cheese flavor is on anything, there's not enough blue cheese. They really don't make it as bold as it should be in my.
Yeah.
But I really like blue cheese. So.
The ranch veggie straws are one of the few things I've ever liked that flavor attached to. It doesn't have the buffalo like spiciness. That really only works on the sauce itself, but they have, I don't know, they have a crispness that works with it. Was your room invaded by, there's 2 options. There is a dapper lumberjack, and there is a nude man flopping a dick around, and I'm always curious which one it is, because I know it's generally one of those 2.
Sometimes it's both, but right now it's a dapper lumberjack gentleman. Okay. He needed a blanket, and I afforded all of them. So.
Oh yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah. So, I think we are at lumberjack levels. I'm pretty sure this is the most beard we've ever had in the household.
Nice.
So. Yeah.
My razor officially stopped working about 2 days ago. So what you have been seeing is a trimmed version of letting it grow out. And the next delivery time that I could find is in a month. So,
wow.
Well, if I didn't want to pay a bunch of extra money to someone, and I'm not going to do that, so I guess this is where we're at. I thought I had shaving cream and regular disposable razors, but they're either somewhere I can't find or got purged somehow.
Yeah. I a few months ago made the switch to one of those like safety razors, and I think that's probably the best thing I've ever done, just because it lasts so much longer.
Yep.
Than the disposable ones, and I think it's better anyway.
I don't like disposable razors very much, but I haven't had to shave anything that's not my face or neck too often, so like that tends to be your face and neck get pretty tough after a while. And those disposable razors are shitty, but they also, who cares?
Yeah.
I do though have my hair is all very curly, like at its base. Mm-hmm. It's curly but so thin that the curl doesn't stick in it, essentially. So my like neck and like not so much the center, but like the sideburn areas and stuff like that, because it's so like thin and coarse, it like catches a lot in a lot of razors, and I end up like cutting myself if I'm not using something that's decent. So I've gotten very used to the feeling of even using like a fully safetied up, like well-working electric razor. Sometimes it'll just like make this noise that sounds like cutting a carrot, and there'll just be like blood coming out of my neck, and I just have had to kind of get used to that over time because it doesn't happen that often, but as soon as it like a razor stops working as well, that starts happening more and more, and I just don't feel like dealing with that because even if it doesn't have like a lot of pain associated, it's still like a pain in the ass to try and like keep your neck from bleeding on stuff.
I mean, of all the places to avoid getting cut, your neck's probably one of my top 3. So I think that makes sense. While we're in like pandemic hair and grooming corner, I have officially caved and purchased hair dye, so that's happening soon.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's a big step.
Yeah, when I cut all of it off, I was like, that's it. No color for a year. Don't do it. Just let it grow and do like its normal hair thing. And then a pandemic happened. So I held out for longer than I thought I would. But I have it coming in the mail, and it's gonna be like a bright orange. So we'll see how that goes.
I mean, that sounds fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's the brand is called Overtone, and it's just kind of like a color depositing conditioner, so it's not as bad on your hair. And so essentially, and the kind that I got is specifically made for like darker hair, so it's supposed to show up, but I'm gonna try and lighten it a little bit more. I did it this morning, so if it looks a little bit lighter, hopefully it looks a little bit lighter.
Mostly the tips. The base doesn't look a lot lighter, but it definitely looks more like chestnut and lighter as opposed to like darker to black. So it seems like it's generally getting there.
Yeah, I have to do that a couple more times, and then I think I'll be in acceptable range for it to be the shade of orange that I want. But I'm excited. I've never done orange before.
Orange is my favorite, but it's also orange is my favorite overall color to use for anything, honestly. But I already had orange hair when I was a kid, and then like if you pick through my hair, there's like red hair and orange hair and stuff in there. Yeah. So I would feel weird dyeing it orange. Like the only color I've really considered dyeing it since I've been like over the age of 20 has been white, and it's mostly because I like the look. I've never really grown out of the punk look for anything. Like most of my clothes, I buy sort of weird shit, and then it slowly becomes punk clothing over time as I like do weird shit to it. So
yeah,
being true to myself, white is really the only color I think would work well, and the rest of them would look like I was trying to be like some sort of rave kid or something, because I don't have the clothing options to really match up with a different hair color.
Yeah, when I first started dyeing my hair, like when I still was living there, I had green for a while, just like on the bottom. And I really liked the green, but it did bother me a lot that I would try to like coordinate with my outfits, and it was a pain in the ass because I don't think at the time I had a lot of things that really went with green. But over time you just kind of don't think about it and just kind of let it go, I guess.
I do like the part of hair dyeing where people talk about like your hair getting more damaged and like just sort of generally being drier and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I think that part's actually kind of great because it's almost like you constantly have molding paste. Like you can do things with your hair when it's been bleached or dyed that you can't do when it's just hair.
Yeah.
I was just, I don't know, thinking about like the benefits of that stuff. That's definitely one of them because, like, as I've stated before, my hair just kind of does whatever, so I have to try and find a shape that I can do, which basically amounts to either an undercut or grown out, and neither of those have a ton of options. But yeah, it's just sort of like even if I put stuff in it, the best I can hope for is a bad look, but it's out of my way, and letting it just do what it wants is kind of my only option.
Yeah, I like that look. I feel like for curly haired people, I think I can get behind that. For the longest time, this is just a curly haired person gripe. Growing up with like Barbies with straight hair, that's just what you expect is for hair supposed to be uniform that like does a thing. It's all straight, and so I hated my hair for the longest time, but once I started seeing more people with curly hair who are just kind of like letting it go in popular culture, magazines, whatever, the internet, I really like that look more than this normally. But
once it has enough leeway to keep things from being like, why are you letting your hair do that, or why are you doing that? Once that sort of stigma is taken out of it, it's fine. Like, I don't dislike my hair, but it has never been something that I can, like, really use as a selling point, I guess. Also, part of the reason why I initially got an undercut is because my hair, if I just let it grow out and just brush it back and see what it does, all of it will just sort of start to fall like in weird spots. And if I take the sides off, then at least it looks like I did it on purpose when it does it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And that's been Hair Chat with people who clearly have their hair shit together.
Clearly. Nobody tell my mother. She's going to be so upset. My whole extended family for a while was just like, I know it wasn't malicious, but every single family event I would go to, because I had dyed my hair and bleached it and like all the shit, it was damaged. It was like the blank canvas of hairs.
Right.
But everyone would just take turns commenting on how damaged and horrible it was. And I hated it. So I cut it off, but I can't hold out anymore. It's going to be orange soon.
It's one of the benefits of having family around is that they just get to tell you all the shit you're doing wrong constantly and then act like when you're kind of sensitive about it that, oh, no, I mean, we're just trying to help out. Not thinking about the fact that there's like a minimum of 2 people telling you about the things you're doing wrong with you at all times. And then in my dad's family, thankfully, is pretty accepting of everything. Like, they are religious, and they're not accepting of, like, certain religious conversations turn into less accepting things, but they also have a stigma, for most of them at least, that is, if you're not religious, that's your choice, and we don't have to talk about it, which is probably the most reasonable Catholic thing that I've experienced in the world of Catholics so far. And it's other families. My mother and my stepmother's family both are just I like all of them, but they will inform you of the many things that you are doing constantly. Yeah.
Yeah. My family is nice about it, but I do have a very vivid memory of having like 3 family members' hands in my hair at one time telling me how damaged it was while I make eye contact with my grandpa from across the room, and he's just like, I'm so sorry. So, but we're going for it again. I don't even care. It's pandemic hours.
That's the nice thing about not living with your family is you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to things that are socially acceptable in the world. There's not really a reason not to.
Yeah, and I honestly, this is the best time to do fucked up things with your look because no one's going to see you for maybe another 2 or 3 weeks. So,
honestly, hopefully, yeah, that's sort of the idea. I have, like, I'm scared of the fact that people are getting sick with something that can kill them, especially because I have definitely not, I don't think, unless I was completely asymptomatic, because I've been around several people who have gotten very sick in like the January, February timeframe. Both my roommate and my boss, who did come to work the whole time. Well, not the whole time. It got to a point where she was so sick she couldn't come to work, which is why I think that it might be potentially something that she had. Though I think assuming it was is probably dangerous. And then Nick got essentially like a flu and then got another one that was like just as bad or worse, like immediately afterwards, which was also in conglomeration with him like going and doing things quite a bit in like large public spaces to a degree. So and my boss got it after coming back from Disneyland. So like it's impossible to know. And I constantly have things that are like not super knowable that are happening with my health. But a lot of that I think tends to be more nerves and muscles based than it is other things. So like here's hoping. Anyway, that part does scare me, but the part that scares me more right now is the idea that people are going to give in to just running back outside and being cool with everything, especially like none of the stay-at-home stuff bothers me nearly as much as the fact that people are like, oh yeah, the country's beaches are open again this weekend, like as of today, I think. That seems like a terrible idea. And I know that like the places that are pushing for it the most are like Florida and stuff. But like at the same time, so have you looked into that at all? The like actual orders that were put out for that?
Not really. No. I haven't heard much about it other than I just peripherally knew that Florida was opening their beaches. And I saw not Florida, but an interview that the mayor of Las Vegas gave. Did you see that?
No, I watched the Texas one. I didn't watch that one.
Oh, God. In which she says, she basically says, oh, we should open our businesses again because no one's doing it and we need, quote, a control group to see whether or not that works. Okay. Which is not, first of all, not how control group, that's not how that works. And then second of all, that was an interview with Anderson Cooper and he was like, so basically you're saying you want Las Vegas to be like the guinea pigs for this? And she's like, no, you're putting words in my mouth. What I'm saying is that I already asked and they told me no. Which is that was pretty awesome.
Also, the language of control group for that would infer that they would be taking a bunch of people who have specifically not had it. So they would need to take a bunch of people who are tested and they know don't have it and then put them out into the public to see what happens. That seems incredibly stupid.
It's really funny to me that like having a pandemic happen at all these kind of more sciencey or technical words enter our vocabularies, and
Uh-huh.
most of us are not using them correctly at all.
Well,
Like the
I
idea of
mean,
a control group.
I was gonna. This is probably our COVID section, I imagine. I have
Yeah.
stuff to not COVID related after this, so that'll work fine. So I guess just to get out of the way, the Texas quote that is most famous at the moment is there are more important things than living after the Texas governor was talking about how like what's really killing us is the economy bullshit. So I guess what's more important than living is money specifically, and that seems very Texas, but it also seems very the part of Texas that sucks and not the rest of it. And the reactions I've seen from the handful of people I know that are from Texas, granted they are in Seattle now, is very negative.
Yeah.
But I think that is maybe the most like on the face of the whole thing quote that you can have. Like, capitalist says there are more important things than living is probably the quote for it. And that kind of coincided with the whole injecting disinfectant thing, which as much as that is like, so because I'm an idiot, I went and looked to see what all of the people who are not like, I don't know what the word is. I guess people who are pro-Trump without other things being like part of their conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty unanimously, those people are saying that it's the media blowing up that he said stuff and they didn't understand it. So they are saying that he said to inject bleach. There's also a lot of weird straw man things happening on both sides of the conversation that are Trump says to inject bleach, Trump says to inject Lysol, like all of these things that are like specific things that he said to inject, which obviously he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sam Cedar has a rant/breakdown that actually describes it pretty well. Like his stuff describes things well. I don't know, like half the time probably. Like he's good at what he does, but he's also very like reactionary, especially lately. And he said that it is very similar to the way that like children will parrot back things that like people that influence them are saying.
Yeah.
Like the whole structure of it is clearly like from at least the perspective of somebody with that background. He was talking to people who were telling him options came up that sounded like what he said, but he was sort of half taking credit for those ideas and half like regurgitating things to like make himself sound like he knew what he was talking about, which I think fits the best of the descriptions I heard. Also, like, he does insinuate that you should inject disinfectants, but I don't trust Trump to know on the spot in a like non-written part of a speech. I don't trust him to know what disinfectants are as like a specific. I also don't expect him to know what like injecting them actually implies. So like you could take it as, hey, we should inject Lysol into somebody's lungs if you're incredibly reactionary. But if you're not reactionary, you just see it as somebody trying to give you medical advice who does not have any idea what they're talking about, which I think is equally hazardous and still deserves a lot of like critique. The other thing that I have to say about that specific speech is that everybody is focusing on that part where right afterwards he reinforces the thing that Mitch McConnell said about states declaring bankruptcy as a good option, which is a terrible idea. First off, it's not part of our legal system right now. Like, states can't declare bankruptcy unless we pass something to let them. But the other part of that is The only example I could find of that happening in recent history is Detroit. And they slowly built their way back up, kind of. Like, Detroit's fine. But the ability of a state to borrow against its credit is really important when it comes to, like, maintaining a lot of the systems of a state. And if you declare bankruptcy, you can no longer do those things. At least you're at the bottom of the list. And the states that are able to take care of themselves aren't going to see any effect from that. But, like, if you have a really poor state and then they have to declare bankruptcy to then owe the government money forever being hyperbole, but you get it, then they also can't borrow against anything, and they can't get, like, state projects done or city projects done or things that actually need, like, to have. They can't contract much of anything because they don't have the ability to anymore. So, like, essentially, and the reason why a lot of, like, alt-right people are super pro the idea of declaring bankruptcy on states, while even most Republicans seem to be very against that idea, is that that puts all the onus even lower. So now all the people in those states are responsible for trying to, like, fund their own shit, which just turns us even more inward on our, like, dystopian libertarian hellscape that people are trying to construct for us. It's a horrible idea, and it's not only predatory, but it's also, like, the fact that that was the recommendation from somebody who's in one of the highest points of government for knowing what that shit means it was a malicious thing that they were trying to do. And thankfully there is probably not enough support for that to actually become something that legally states can do, but if they could, that is a huge problem. Anyway, I just wanted to state that because that's the thing everybody's ignoring that isn't injecting things, which is just a misinterpretation of a misinterpretation of something that a dumb person said, which isn't really worth talking about.
Right. That you just reminded me of that one marketing campaign from, I think it was like Domino's or Pizza Hut, where they were filling in potholes for people.
Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember that, and that is super weird.
Yeah. And I remember when everyone was like, when Domino's is, like, better at doing things than the government, you know, not in a great spot, but I feel like that's something we could expect more of if we enter states declaring bankruptcy kind of.
Well, the good news is so the other side of the libertarian alt-right garbage like idea set is a lot of people getting excited about this idea that, and, like, I would point to people like Ben Shapiro and like, especially privileged younger assholes like that who don't even have to consider, 30 years from now when they are like, elderly and actually have to start dealing with things that exist in our country.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of, like, I hope it happens in that kind of sector of people over all of the people who are currently unemployed, which is, picking up and not. I think the unemployment rate has been, after it jumped to, like, 20 million, it's been somewhere around, like, 3 to 5 million additional per week. So it's a lot. It's in a country that has like, what is it? It's like, I don't feel like guessing the number anymore. I wanted to say it was like 140-ish million people, but I'm probably off. Anyway, in a country that has, let's say, a sizable percentage of people having to go on unemployment that will eventually run out because they're refusing to set up any kind of like actual care system for that. And I mean, especially with the post office being snubbed again with this second stimulus, which is like their projection right now is to lose like 50% of their overall everything from this. Like, the worth of the post office is going to have, even if projections are decent. And that's still like how we do a lot of things. It's not just for old people to send you like letters. Like the post office does a lot of shit in this country. And that's upsetting because that's another libertarian goal is knocking out the post office and turning it into a for-profit like corporation or set of corporations. Honestly, it'd probably just be Comcast here. Like we'd probably have like some stupid like big company step in and start a partnership that eventually turned into them absorbing into Amazon, and then Amazon would own all of our methods of communication for like a quarter of the entire country and a portion of the rest of it, which is sort of the Alien versus Predator future of of everything. So I mean, maybe.
What's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong here.
But once the people who are currently unemployed are on the other side of this, and we start building up anything in order to employ them again, it creates a space where companies can both claim that they can't pay as much because they've been hurt financially, and people need money to live, which, like, if people were afraid of, like speaking specifically to more conservative people at the moment, but if people were afraid of like the San Francisco lifestyle spreading throughout the country, this is essentially how you do it. You create a system in which the only way to afford living is to live with like 2 to 4 other households in the same living area. And you start having to like work 2 or 3 jobs per person to exist. And you start having to have like giant amounts of homeless people that you have to try and figure out something to do with, yet you don't have the excess money to do anything about it. And then, you know, places like Facebook can come buy a section of your city and just declare it their own tiny city inside of yours and stop paying taxes. Like, that's essentially what will happen if we don't have something to like safeguard people, is everybody gets turned into weird like serfdom again, and they get to work whatever they're allowed to work in order to exist. And then, you know, you have like honestly, that is the one thing that I think could start to feasibly crush some of the movements to like get better living, is that if that happens, it makes speaking out much harder, and it puts the onus on speaking out on people who have it a little better and are more afraid to fall down to where they are. So I think it's really important that people like fight for some amount of rights constantly. And I don't agree with going out and like demonstrating that wearing a mask is tyranny, because that's garbage. But I think that maybe if people organize something that is smarter, that could be useful. And I know a lot of larger companies are the ones that are fine right now, but honestly, like, the ideal situation would be people in larger companies just saying they're not going to do it anymore. Like, whether that looks like a strike or a walkout or what, I think that that is one of the few things that's going to force conversation on stuff. And that got me into a thing that I'm not going to talk at length about because it is depressing as shit. But if you want to do a deep dive, and this is part of why I don't have a lot to talk about this week, because I spent a lot of time looking into this and realized that, oh, that's not fun. the history of murders in trying to organize unions is extensive and terrifying. To a degree that
scared me.
Uh-oh, they're here. To a degree that is like, I knew about a portion of it, but it is shocking to like look into it on a world scale.
Mm-hmm.
One of the ones that was the most affecting was and part of what put me on to looking into this a little more was there's a very like short run so far podcast called Grub Stakers that just talks about millionaires or billionaires rather. And in a portion of one of theirs, they touched on Colombian labor union work because it was notable and that Colombia has a lot of dangerous positions for people who are known like people in a community if they say the wrong shit.
There's some. We have evolved to the naked dick flapping.
I mean, you don't.
Okay.
You don't have glasses on, so everybody's safe.
Not everybody.
Well, I mean, you're not
I'm
safe,
being exposed.
but this is your own doing, so that's fine. One of the just very general things that happened in Colombia is I think it was the 80s, and it had to do, it's in their Warren Buffett episode. It had to do with Coca-Cola, and there were people trying to unionize and like maintain like a burgeoning union to protect the workers at the Coca-Cola plants.
Mm-hmm.
It was over the course of like a month or something. It was a much shorter a time than it should be. 10 of their union leaders were murdered, and there's no information other than that. They just, somebody killed them all. I don't know. At like separate places and times. And then apparently all of the people, like all of the employees were brought in for like a big group meeting and told, you can either stop trying to unionize or die. So they didn't. And the reason why that came in to the Warren Buffett episode is because that, unrelated to Warren Buffett directly, but he had just bought like a stake in Coca-Cola at that point. So they kind of went off on this like somewhat conspiratorial thing. But like ultimately, if you think about it, this isn't their saying, this is just sort of my speculation. If you put a bunch of money into a company and it becomes more valuable to a bunch of people, things like that are going to start being more common because people have more to lose.
Yeah.
And the only way to avoid having a situation where you have that much to lose is to have the socialist horror, which is everybody has ownership of little things throughout the entire country, and it's more equal. Because then it's very clear what happens. Then we just get back to like, well, get back to kind of a long tail on that one, but get back to like, I was very angry at this person and they had a cool car, and that's like your reasons for murder, as opposed to this person was thinking about changing a part of their EULA that would affect my overall like money earnings, and all of my investors are going to pull back if they do that kind of shit. I don't really feel like getting into like syndicate video game land when it comes to like our reasons for people dying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the fun time. Hey, let's maybe think about socialist policy still section of this. Also, do you have any new feelings on the Joe Biden rape allegation stuff? Or I guess molestation. I don't know. It's unclear how they're presenting it.
Was there like something new that happened this week regarding that? Because I haven't super been following it, but I heard that there was like an interview or something released with somebody.
I didn't see a new interview.
Okay.
But I have heard a lot of places talking about it. Just that it sort of has undone a lot of the solidarity behind like the Me Too style movement stuff, which is a bummer because that, for as much as it was sort of like a I don't know, I was going to say run for the cure, but I actually think that is an effective thing as well, and probably better meaning. The Me Too movement thing has an air of I don't know, like when people say self-care, and I'm like, ugh. The Me Too movement, in my mind, should actually just be we should listen to women, and things should be legally like legally set up in a way to where if you have been like taken advantage of by people in ways that for whatever reason we consider fine, maybe that shouldn't have like the well, it was 3 years ago, so forget about it kind of rules. Like maybe we should have some power, since a lot of the people who get taken advantage of are younger.
Yeah.
As you get older, you have more ability to like present yourself as a thinking human being, and like it, by no fault of people, by fault of like society sees you as a full-fledged person at a certain point, if you're rich enough, I guess, but we can ignore that. The idea of people listening to like what are primarily like women in their like late teens and early 20s, like that's not a group that's listened to. So like we kind of need more than 3 years or whatever it is to like have it be a meaningful thing to talk about, or we need to just listen to people, which is probably the right choice.
Yeah.
And having some old shitty asshole just skirt the whole thing because he's for whatever reason still being labeled as a progressive hope, even though anyone who's actually left or progressive thinks he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's probably not good.
For me, my personal feelings about that whole thing is that they've really kind of not undone, but made, I don't know what's the right way to say this. I'm really frustrated in their decision to not help investigate this or go after Biden and all, because with their specific reasoning that they gave, which is that it would put their nonprofit status in jeopardy, which is total and complete bullshit. Because those are the people who get away with it the most. Mm-hmm. And if you can't like get your organization together to go after the people who pass as like a champion of women or like progressive or woke people like that, if you can't go after those people, how are you going to how are you going to go after people who are just outwardly worse than that? Like I it's very frustrating to see that, but and it kind of diminishes my faith in their I don't know, effectiveness, I guess. But I do appreciate the I think their initial message of just like making it more spoken about. Like I hear a lot of people talk about how, especially in Hollywood, there's just like an unspoken thing that like people have to sleep with each other, or people have to sleep to get jobs, whatever. Like it's just an unspoken fact that everybody knows, and like now it's more in the open, I guess. I think that's good, but just like making it out, making it an openly known thing and just leaving it there is like not the end goal. So yeah, I'm frustrated with how they handled that.
It only takes a certain amount of time. The time differs, but eventually issues become a joke, and that's just how like social discourse works. Like something that is important to you, I don't know, let's say when you're a kid, something happens to you that was incredibly scarring. When you get older, you look back on it and it's just, oh yeah, I remember that happened. It's pretty funny now, usually, depending on what it is. But and like famous people had terrible things happen to them. Like you can read in autobiographies or biographies, and a lot of those things are just sort of regarded as like, oh yeah, it's ridiculous that happened. And I think that there is a real danger of that happening with all of this stuff, because that's just kind of how the social dynamic works. Eventually, people say like, I don't know, Weinstein was a bad person, but like, I don't know, isn't it weird how all this stuff happened? And then it just kind of turns into like, well, that may as well be a story that people tell. And the only way for us to avoid that becoming just sort of this weird side content is to actually keep talking about it until changes happen. Right. Like a few people have been charged, but that doesn't change the way that we actually run our like country. That just changes some people's lives.
Yeah, and I think using Weinstein as kind of the poster child for this issue is generally a bad idea, because a lot of the like assault and I'm forgetting words. Not discrimination, but okay, I'll just stick with assault for now. A lot of that stuff that's like commonplace
were you trying to think of molestation?
No, I can't remember what I was trying to think of, but like not everybody is a Weinstein, obviously. Like hardly anyone's problems or actions are going to rise to the level of Harvey Weinstein. So if all guys are measuring themselves up against Harvey Weinstein, obviously you're going to think that like, yeah, I'm not that bad. Yeah. So it's kind of frustrating for that to be like, he's like the boogeyman of this whole thing. Like, obviously he's a shitty person. But I mean, we have like a Joe Biden who very possibly did this thing, and because he's not as bad as Harvey Weinstein, people aren't, making as big of a deal of it or addressing it even.
Yeah. Well, Joe Biden stands up for women. That's sort of the thing that people seem to think. He wouldn't smell their hair and neck if he didn't like women, right?
Yeah. God. Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, that's fun. That's a fun topic.
Fun topic.
It also sucks because, like I was kind of saying, the Trump stuff, I mean, he's definitively raped at least a few people. And that's sort of a problem. But nobody's ever going to bring that back up because it's old news. Like, what, you're going to drudge that up for an election? Yeah. Look, we all know that he tore out his wife's hair, beat her up, and raped her. But they were married. We all know that he said some real dark stuff to a 14-year-old on the street. But that's just guys being guys.
Guys being dudes. I think especially this week with the bullshit he said about like injecting that whole thing, I don't even have the capacity to be surprised at how stupid he is. and that is that's annoying too. Like I should be upset. I should be upset.
Yeah.
But like we should all be upset all the time, but you don't really have the capacity to do that. But yeah, it's horrifying that you could forget that, yeah, Donald Trump has also done so many of these horrendous things, and that's just life, you know.
Yeah, it also sucks because that Joe Biden stuff has a very real chance of affecting his like electability, which I don't think he has a ton of to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to affect Trump's electability. Like that's just there, and it's still fine. People are defending him for everything. It's not going to change.
Yeah.
I have one meatball left.
Oh!
Actually,
the perfect segue.
It's a vegetable meatball. How?
Hey, interesting. You mentioned that because one of the things I wanted to talk about are bean balls. I made bean meatballs yesterday.
That's not the media I thought you meant at the intro.
Nope. It's not, but no, I literally made meatballs out of beans. That's what I wanted to tell everybody. That's pretty much it. They weren't that good. They were okay. I was actually very impressed with like texture-wise how similar they were because we had them in spaghetti, but they did still taste very beany, which
sure.
I expected. I didn't have a lot of the ingredients that you were supposed to have. I just had like canned beans. So.
Do you have a Worcestershire?
No.
Oh.
That's probably one of the main things.
That's what I add to vegetable based like fake meat products.
Mm-hmm.
And it works great because that is that weird. It kind of tastes like blood, honestly. And it works pretty well to like add that weird, like slightly copper, slightly slightly like sweet, biting into something.
I think that's what I need. I was missing that and then some other like Italian spices, but overall the texture was good. Like I would do it again. It was just mashed up beans and breadcrumbs. So.
And I mean that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I feel like corn would be good in that, but I don't know if that's true.
Maybe.
Oh, you saw. I was just checking a thing and saw that you had already been here. You saw my secret night sandwich recipe, did you?
I did. That sandwich looks good.
That sandwich, it was late when I made it, but like, I didn't have anything to drink last night. I was done with like an hour-long walk to go look at all the stuff around town, things like that. That sandwich tasted better than most sandwiches I've had, and good. I don't know why, because it doesn't have anything like amazing on it, but the flavors together worked how I wanted it to. The only difference I would make is taking those same ingredients, but like a little bit more, like if I had more access to more food, and then turning that into like a Monte Cristo. I think that's the only difference I would make if I were to make a fancier version of it.
Yeah, it was kind of there, or it was like in that realm because you had what kind of jam? Was it jam or like preserves or something like that?
It was a strawberry rhubarb jam.
Yeah. Any strawberry rhubarb jam on a sandwich with what kind of cheese did you have?
It was shredded mozzarella.
Yeah, that'll do it for me. Also, you had rye bread, which is just always
honestly. Good. If there was one bread that I had access to forever, it would be dark rye bread for sure.
Yeah,
it's best. Too. You can make a dessert out of it. You can make a sandwich out of it. Like it is the perfect texture. It's not it's not like the white bread texture that's like
spongy.
It feels like somebody just puffed flour. It's like it's the texture of a very, very soft shoe.
Like a croc?
Like if you could eat a croc, sure.
Especially if you're talking like tie-dye Crocs and marbled rye. I think that's a good comparison. Marbled rye is the tie-dye Crocs of bread.
Yeah, you could put little charms and stuff on that too, for sure. I'm going to go ahead and say there are no worthwhile comments today for our comment section. We do have comments, but I put it up so fucking late. I put it up at like 3 a.m. And I just didn't give people time to get in there. So half of it's Korean, and I think we'll skip it for this week. I also actually I should grab some more coffee and then announce what I was gonna say. You should do a short poem about that ball of airheads you made.
I can talk more about that, I suppose. It's stuck to my desk. That's a great development. It is now actually slightly the texture of my desk. You know, I think I'm gonna skip that. I'm actually gonna opt for these Buffalo Blue chips, which are lacking in blue flavor. Needs more blue flavor. Anyhow, now my fingers are sticky from airhead blobs and potato chips. I'll play you back in.
Excellent. You've heard from the tone that I am back. So I don't have a pop secret today, but what I do have is this very fine cup that is one of my dad's old cups. Nice. And then I am drinking one of my dad and I's family drink combos, which is just straight whiskey and coffee. I do black coffee. He would probably make himself a latte, but my pops has become a little bit of a fancy boy in his older age, so he drinks a lot more homemade lattes and a lot less black coffee, which health-wise is probably a good idea.
Yeah, my grandpa and my dad, I guess a little bit. My dad just drinks black coffee, but my grandpa has gotten also really into like fancy coffees. He makes have you ever been to a Dutch Bros? I can't remember if they're in Washington or not.
I don't know if I've ever seen one of those.
Well, you know the kicker drink?
No, I don't like Dutch Bros.
Me neither, but it's like Irish cream syrup or something.
Yeah.
And basically my grandpa dedicated a while to perfecting his own at-home kicker. And it's really good, actually. He makes a really good one. But all of my guy family members have an AeroPress. Have you seen those? And they're like super into them. My dad loves his AeroPress. So I guess today's podcast is sponsored by AeroPress. And Dutch Bros.
That's an okay. Yeah, AeroPresses are pretty good. I still like a French press the most.
Yeah, but I'm not too picky when it comes to the means of how I make the coffee. I just will take what is
for
given.
me, when it comes to coffee or cooking or anything food related, I will almost always do the slower option because the flavor and control I have over the end product is higher.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a few things that a food processor is going to just do better, but I don't tend to use a lot of food processor things. So also I prefer most of my baked goods and things like that to have more texture and less uniformity. So I'm not like a souffle guy generally. I do like Dutch babies, but you don't necessarily need something like that for that.
What is a Dutch baby again?
Dutch baby is an egg souffle that's like a breakfast. It's basically the center point between a pancake and scrambled eggs, but you still eat it with like syrup and stuff, and it's like a dessert breakfast with a little more to it.
That sounds good.
They're very good. They're very good, and you shouldn't scream at your oven while you make it. I hear. But yeah, everything else. I mix cake batters by hand and stuff like that because I usually work from a base of like a dough or whatever. I always call it dough. Batter. There we go.
Batter, yeah.
I work from a base of batter that I know works for cake, and then I adjust it as I go, depending on. Usually, I cook by smell, so I do a lot of like additive stuff until it smells like it should before it's cooked or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's why I end up with the stuff to make gravy with after I make roast vegetables, is because I set it all up so that it has a like appropriate bouquet, and then at the end you can take the extra oil and wine and stuff and turn it into a sauce for other stuff. I considered using that for that sandwich last night, but it wouldn't fit with the rest of the stuff as well. But that is the nice thing about this whole COVID thing, is getting a chance to reconnect with all the cooking I did when I was incredibly poor or unemployed or whatever else over the last decade. So it has actually been incredibly stress relieving to be forcibly removed from society for the last month. And honestly, I'm sure I'd get tired of it, but it isn't happening yet.
It's starting to happen for me. I don't it's it happened faster than I was expecting because I work from home and am not a generally outgoing person anyway, so I wasn't expecting it to affect me that much. And I think it's just kind of the I heard this phrase on a podcast the other day and it sounds good, so I'm going to use it. I think it's just the obliteration, what did they call it? The obliteration of expectation that has bothered me the most. It's like just the normalcy isn't really there. You're just not really sure what to expect. And I think apparently, I didn't know this about myself, but the routines are nice.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Routine, I'm not having a problem with. I have a pretty good routine here.
Yeah. What's weird is that my routine, with the exception of like a few things, should be the same. I work from home, so there's not really anything different. It's just I don't know what has bothered me the most. I think it's mainly just not having the option to go and be somewhere else, feeling kind of like trapped.
Yes.
So, because I did have there have been a couple of moments in the last few days where it's just like all of a sudden I have to leave this house or else I might just freak out and start screaming. So,
yeah, no, I think that's normal. So not relating myself in skill to like great weird artists or anything like that. But in mindset, I think I'm probably similar, just in both by birth and by training, honestly. If you go through and look at the personal spaces of artists, whether they were rich or poor or whatever, who were like, art was their whole life, like they put that above everything else, which unfortunately I do kind of do, which is probably why I have been single for as long as I have, etc. And I see a lot of weird patterns in that stuff that kind of trails back to me. I think the easiest one to look at, because there is literally a book about it, is Edward Gorey, and his house is literally just like a self-built, like the house isn't self-built, but the house that he inhabited became his own world, essentially, in which he just started like adding on to everything weird bits. He had an obsession with elephants, and he would just place them in places, almost like he was like creating a very tailor-made habitat for himself and no one else in a lot of ways. And I can see that in the way that I kind of psychologically am. I'm very okay with like lots of people or no people, or lots of activities or no activities. What ultimately starts to affect me is when people tell me that my like personal self has to change, and it's not something that I'm doing for me, it's something I'm doing for like the outside world. That's what starts to distress me more. And I think that is a pattern I'm starting to see more and more as I like get used to living like this, especially. I'm glad the wind died down a little bit, because it was loud as hell in this house when I first started setting up in here. Yeah.
I didn't hear it, but our listeners did miss out on a good 3 minutes of some really loud sirens.
Yeah,
Something
lots of various emergency response vehicles in Kirkland. My hope, I don't know if it's a hope. So Kirkland has a sort of subset of Bellevue. Bellevue sucks, by the way. I don't get into city politics a lot when it comes to like just disliking a place. Bellevue can kiss my whole ass. But one of the things that Bellevue does is it just has fuck tons of police everywhere, and they use it to essentially intimidate people out of Bellevue who aren't there for Bellevue shit. And that's why Bellevue doesn't have like very many homeless or anything, because they'll like fucking push you out of there and just make you go to Seattle or surrounding areas or whatever. Talking with a few different homeless people on the bus system, Bellevue is not a good place to go. A lot of the homeless people who don't hang out in one spot spend their time taking a bus to different smaller towns and then back to Seattle, so that they don't like wear out their welcome, more or less. Because one of the things that I have in common with homeless people is incredible self-doubt when it comes to a lot of like general everyday things. And that does extend to like overstaying your welcome is a very evident thing in your head at all times. And at least in the like 10 to 15 homeless people I've had this conversation with, that is the reason why they move around so much, and why they are like trying to get bus tickets and then showing up again, is because they are trying to not have people hate them, which is a shitty reason, because people should be trying to help them, but that's not how people work, at least not with our current attitude. Anyway, Bellevue's not good, but Kirkland has a portion of sort of the Bellevue police problem. They're almost emulating Bellevue to a smaller degree to try and keep this weird facade of like safe Waspville going, in which like you could have somebody like sleeping in the park who looks weird, and they will have like 3 cop cars show up, not because there's any reason, but because it's almost like they're not doing anything else. And when I hear that many cop cars, my first thought currently is that people are at the beach and they're not 6 feet apart, which is actually the best reason I can think of for why a show of being aggressively police oriented could be okay in that situation, because they just show up and they're like, we're not doing anything, but you shouldn't be either. And the other thing that I totally talked over and missed earlier was that those places that are opening their beaches, which is, I think, everywhere. Mm-hmm. The thing that I've heard from, I think it was the Florida representative and California, the beaches are specifically open for movement reasons. Like, people can exercise, people can go to the beach and do things, but people are not supposed to be going to the beach to hang out. That's not going to happen. But I think that being in the wording is at least I think it's being insincere as to why opening the beach is okay, honestly. But I think that it is good that people are at least worried about looking stupid still if they say that it's not for that.
Yeah. It's something.
Just moving smoothly into another thing entirely. So you haven't seen The Matrix, as you told me yesterday.
No, I have not.
I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but I do think it's something you will have to do at some point.
Yeah.
So we watched The Matrix last night. Mm-hmm. You were busy with work. We watched The Matrix and we watched Kung Fu Hustle.
Ooh.
One of those movies has, shit. Both of those movies have a better first half than a second half in some ways. But it's clear that Kung Fu Hustle has much better choreography. And also, so when I first saw Kung Fu Hustle, I didn't know personally very many people from China. And now I know more people from China. I've just met more people and had more relationships and stuff like that. That movie seems more like vague, fantastic recollections of home stories now than I definitely thought it did when I first saw it, which is disturbing. But have you seen that movie?
No,
Probably
I
not,
haven't.
right?
No.
You should watch it. It's like Looney Tunes meets a kung fu movie. Okay. It's pretty good. It's Stephen. Is it Stephen Chow? Fuck, I forget his name now. A stuntman / martial artist. Like, directed it, wrote it, stars in it, all that stuff. But he brought in a lot of really good like other martial artists who, specifically in that movie, the point of it is sort of it's almost like a proletariat message in a weird way. All of the martial artists are either just regular ass people or hiding as regular ass people. And there's a lot of like, I don't know. There's a lot of still sort of exceptionalism that I'm not behind, but that's sort of inherent to that genre. But there's sort of a nice moment towards the beginning of that where a bunch of people who just work menial jobs start like defending themselves and beating the shit out of like an organized mob of extortionists, which I find to be very like appropriate to this moment in time kind of movie watching. It's good wish fulfillment.
Yeah, that seems like that would be very therapeutic.
Yeah.
For right now.
Anyway, so tell me everything you know about the Matrix.
Oh, I don't know anything about. Okay, here's everything I know about the Matrix, and this could not even be the Matrix. It's just what I think is the Matrix, which could possibly be better than the Matrix. But yeah. The only thing I know about the Matrix is that there's a scene where like there's bullets and it's slow motion, and they like go back to dodge out of the way, and they wear sunglasses, and I think that's about all I know about the Matrix. Yeah, I think that's it, actually.
You've got a pretty good understanding of that portion of the Matrix. So nothing about the storyline or anything like that, then?
Not really, although I guess I have a vague idea that it's about... I mean, I don't think this is the correct way of saying it, but something along in the vein of like life as we know it is a simulation sort of thing.
Yeah, it borrows from a lot of like psychology stuff, and then it also makes its own like sort of religious mythology out of it. Okay. It's worth seeing, but it is. Especially looking back on it, I still think the soundtrack is extremely enjoyable. It is the most like what the Matrix came out had to be like late 90s, right?
That sounds right.
Do you?
I want to say like 99.
I'm gonna say, yeah. I'm going to say 2000 just so we don't have the same answer.
1999.
Perfect. Yeah, it has the most 1999 sounding shit in it ever. My favorite sounds like a plus. Yeah, my favorite thing about it though is that they go to like I don't know. It's like so the Matrix borrows a lot from, at least style-wise, from some specific comic books, but also from like Netrunner, like Snow Crash style stuff, where it's literally just talking about like future society and VR, and a lot of stuff that directly sounds like what we're currently living through would be the prologue. So cool. that fits really well. But what I'm going to read to you is a synopsis of The Matrix today. Because I want to bring more reading into this, because I feel like we find a lot of really special stuff, and we don't really have a good way to get Natalie, our resident fan fiction expert, in here. But in the meantime, I think that we could do some of this good work still. I'm sending you a copy of this so you can read along with me and know that I'm not making any of the words that I say up. And so that you can study it and still know what the Matrix is all about later. Did you receive those?
I did.
Okay. This isn't long. This is The Matrix Return. This is created by Peter Chimera. You can find it on fanfiction.net. Because I do things dumbly, I went ahead and sent 2 images of all the text to Madison. Mostly because I want a hard copy to just have on me. And now, The Matrix Return. Neo was wake from sleeping, and he shout at Trinity, "Help, I think you're dead." "No, I am not," she said, and she gotted some water drink.
I love water drink.
Morpheus walking into the bedroom. Good morning, Neo. We must kung fu. So they trained the jujitsu and martial arts.
Oh my god.
Neo kick him. Good job.
Wait. No, we have to address martial arts.
Yeah.
For everyone listening to this, martial arts is written as two words. Martia being the first, and Larts being the second. Which is great. Okay, continue.
That's my new name from now on.
Martial arts.
Morpheus, we got a distress signal. It is from Niobe. So they ran into the ship and they found Niobe and she was okay, but there was a sentinel. Neo punched it. His hand was hurting very badly.
Oh,
Neo,
no.
You must be careful, Morpheus said, and shot the robot. Wait, Neo said, and he downloaded how to kill the sentinels. But it was too late and caused the machines created a new matrix.
Oh, no.
No, we cannot our powers in the new matrix. Then Neo disconnected, but he was looked dead. And they all told Niobe the sad news. What happened in the first Matrix? They are all dead. Tis is too much, Morpheus shouted quietly. Help me fight to save this.
Mm-hmm.
I illa help you, Trinity say, with the cry she was sad, 'cause thoughts Neo was dead, but it was Matrix trick. Neo tried to say help, but his body wads froze. So, oh no, Morpheus say at to radar screen. More Matrix is attack us. We will have to jug in. Trinity hooked her up. When they entered to Palace was filled with Smiths because the Matrix was corrupted with the Matrix virus. I'll fight this 500, Morpheus said as he sorted out his katana at great attack. This is all accurate to the movie so far.
Okay, good.
Trinity watch in amazing. You are so good. What this? Morpud read a data because he was fight agents and make them run, but the data said some information.
Oh.
Sorry, but the data said some information? It say Neo is alive.
Alive.
We should go back to seek to him. And they took off by using phone interface. Neo was okay. They finds because of Midiskull, a Quatmont.
Was this written by Donald Trump?
Probably.
Medical doctors.
The Matrix Return, created by Peter Donald Trump Chimera. Neo was okay. They finds him because of Midiskull, a Quatmont.
Mm-hmm.
The Matrix is virused. Weezo, they cans not control the people anymore. We arm not win, yet but shall continue of the fight. They agreed and formed for strength so they could fight the Matrix one other day. Gentlemen, the fight goes on, Neo said with his fist, and the crews cheered with new hope.
I mean...
Begone, thought. As is our customary sign-off of fan fiction. I think that's an important recap, just so, you don't go in blind.
I actually don't think I want to see the movie. I think I just want to live with this as my understanding of what the Matrix is.
Mm-hmm. So based on that story, what would you picture a Sentinel being?
I pictured it in my head. I think this is just my association with the word Sentinel, is like the from Portal, the Sentinel robots that sit there, and then if you're in like your how do you say this? Their sight or their view, it shoots at you. That's just what I pictured. Is that right?
That's about right, yeah. Uh,
I love this.
The writing in that is pretty top notch.
There's some just really creative spelling choices that I'm really excited about. I love someone sorted their katana at great attack.
Man, I've been playing the Final Fantasy VII remake some this week. I have been sorting out my katana at great attack quite a bit.
Oh my god. My other favorite moment, I'm trying to find it. Corrupted. I like Corrupted.
Yep.
I think my favorite has to be medical equipment.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at sight reading when it comes to like reading out a word that is wrong. The way that they spelled medical equipment is so counter to language that it is near impossible to just read it. But yeah, I hope that people spread that story around as much as possible. It's been around for a long time, and it's an important piece of the Matrix universe, I feel like. And the best part about it is that you can still see all of those movies and they will feel fresh. They really took some good, strong liberties there. And I think the first movie is worth watching no matter what. I think the second two, whatever, they're fine. They're not bad ideas. But I think the best overall movie in the Matrix franchise is the Animatrix. And that's probably the one that I would actually give a recommend for if anybody wants to like catch up or see for the first time any Matrix related media. It's also kind of cheating. The Animatrix, I think, came out in like 2000 or 2001. And it is a collection of like, I want to say it's like 8 individual stories that are all done by different writers and different animation teams. So they have like the people who made Aeon Flux made one of them, and it goes over essentially the information that they leave out of the Matrix, of like world building and all that, which is honestly one of my favorite things about sci-fi is the world building. So like they establish why things are the way they are, the way things interact with normal people, and sort of the history of why you should care about any of this. So in a lot of ways, it's actually much more of a complete movie than any of the actual movies, because it gives you, I don't know, like a more legible Silmarillion of what the Matrix means as a thing, as opposed to being just a fun movie, which maybe I just don't like fun movies as much. That's possible too.
I'll have to look into this and see it.
All of the Matrix movies, I believe, are on Netflix.
Oh, really?
And the Animatrix, I think, is sometimes on Netflix, but I have definitely, let's say, come across it for free. If do some digging. So that would be my suggestion. sometimes .ru can be a useful way to search the internet.
I'm a fan of .ru.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff going on there.
So this time, it was me who received a package of Easter candy.
Oh.
The first Easter candy I'll point out is this bag of face masks.
The sweetest candy of all.
Yeah, since my biological mother, in fact, works for Quest Diagnostics, moving the virus around, they have the necessary face masks for them, and she got a couple safety things for me to use, including this Peanuts themed cloth mask, which is the one that I will be using to go to the store in the next, I don't know, maybe I'll go to the store this week sometime. The amount of thinking about how little I've been to the store or done laundry is disturbing because I don't have a lot of clothes that I wear, but I'm realizing that not only do I have quite a bit of clothes that exist, but I also have a pretty sufficient amount of my real scaling of how long I can exist is how much underwear do I have, basically. Like that's the key component. That's the linchpin of somebody's clothing collection. And it turns out not all of it's in great shape. Some of it has, let's say, torn seams or bands that are separating from the main portion. But the thing is, when you wear boxer briefs, it doesn't matter that much unless the holes are in specific spots. So, like, that's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. I was actually thinking this morning at the it is kind of disturbing that I haven't had to do laundry yet.
Yep.
And I think I'm getting there. I think I'm like on the last couple of days of like, all right, we need some clean clothes up in here. But
I have like almost like a countdown timer. My underwear like set up like, got about 2 days left.
Oh, down to this pair? All right. Yeah. 4 days.
I think I will have to do laundry, but I want to do it on Monday, so I'm not doing it on the weekend because that seems like the worst possible time to do it. But that's usually what I do, is wait till a weekday anyway. So I'll just do it while everybody is presumably working from home and hope that they're too busy.
It's a good plan.
Yeah. But the store, I do need some stuff, but like I know that I have at least 3 solid days of food now. So my impetus is fairly low. I'm gonna probably tomorrow, maybe tonight, depending on how late I'm up, make another roast because I just ate the last of the last one that I made. But it's basically just taking a bunch of fucking vegetables and cooking them for a long time with stuff that smells good.
Yeah.
And having some sort of meat or fake meat to put with it so that it kind of fries in the oil in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It does take about 2 hours to make it, but like, who cares? I have that, and that lasts for like at least a week. So it's
roast stuff is always good to just kind of have around.
Also, I've been using like a big ass popcorn, like a glass mixing or popcorn bowl So I open the fridge and the top shelf is this like bowl of food that is also like a countdown timer that I can use. It's been pretty good for that.
That's good. Yeah, I think we're getting there too. Close to another trip needing to be made. I do have to go get, as I said earlier, can't remember if I said that on the podcast or not, but I do need to go get some alcohol for making a drink. I'm not actually sure what to get or what I'm going to make. So
my suggestion, even though it's probably not most people's, is always gin. You can do...
I really like gin.
You can do interesting things with gin, and it's just like... The problem I have with whiskey is that I like the flavor a lot on its own, and it's especially like Jack Daniels and stuff is so easy to drink that you can just kind of like absentmindedly drink a lot of it. Mm-hmm. I think that the flavor of gin, if it's a decent, like if it matches your preference, is almost overpowering in a way that makes it very like meatable. Like you can kind of size out your portions and be pretty satisfied from it. Like if I had less willpower, or let's say it was 7 years ago, I could probably just drink an entire bottle of whiskey because I liked it. But gin is a little harder to do that. Like once you get, if you've ever done a full glass of gin, which I have definitely done in the past, when you get to the end of that glass, your next thought is not, let's pour another glass of gin. It's usually, that was pretty good. I'll wait another week or so before I do that again.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I think sake is great, but it's not something you're probably going to mix unless you do weird shit like I do. So my vote is for gin.
Yeah. I probably will end up doing that. Although we do have a pina colada mix and no anything to go with that. So maybe I'll opt for that. Sake is dangerous for us to have because between Evan and I, it's just so easy to drink.
It's the easiest drinking alcohol there is. And like when it's heated up, it's so pleasant that it's having
too comfy.
Even my willpower is tested by having this giant carton of it. Like every time I see it, my thought is like, I could probably drink that. Like I could probably just finish that.
That's why I haven't ordered one, because I don't think that's a good idea for me to just have that much. Because the other day we got, I got a bottle of sake. I don't remember what brand it is, but it's just like one of the two brands that our grocery store carries. And it was gone like later that night because you can't, it's so easy just to drink the whole thing in one sitting.
If I added this to whiskey and then heated it up, do you think that'd be good or bad? Because I've had a decent amount of this, but I feel like it's experimental time in the whiskey drinking.
I think in the interest of the podcast, you should do it. Test it out for the people we need to know.
Okay. It's got sort of a plastic bottle whiskey look now that it has that in it.
Nice.
I'm going to disappear for a minute and heat this up. Okay. If you want to uke the people, you could. This would be a good time for it.
I will uke the people. Here is a chord that I know, and it is called C. I did it. Here's another chord that I know, and I think this one's called F. Okay. Here's another chord that I know. This one's G. And I really don't know any songs yet. What was I learning the other day? I was trying to learn Wonderwall. It didn't work out. That's supposed to be 8 by Billie Eilish. But it's a work in progress. What have you done?
Proof that it's hot. You can see the steam coming off that.
All right, I'm curious.
I took a smell of this. So, no. You know the aromatic qualities of sake?
Yeah.
The aromatic qualities of whiskey are more of a thrusting kind of quality. So what I'll do is I'm gonna I'll get myself some water here real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and show you this candy stash I got for Easter, that Jesus holiday stuff.
Yeah.
Started with the mask because we get sidetracked here. How's that buffalo chip? Oh, that's some ASMR ass chip there.
These are the really crunchy ones. They're like kettle chips.
I'm jealous. My half done dental work would not let me do that. Can you take another one, but get that mic up there? I feel like we owe it to the people.
Yeah. Here you go, people.
Everybody shut up. That's a lot. Also, that sounds almost exactly like the squirrels on the tree outside the window.
That's what I was going for.
That's good.
All right. Squirrel.
So
chip everywhere.
I got a good set of stuff. Well, it's fine. It's your bed, right? So
yeah. So
I got some of these hollow eggs.
Ooh.
So these are the just like what's this company called? Palmer. That's right. So I would vote Palmer chocolate as maybe the worst chocolate on earth. I know some people who think that it's amazing. I think they're good, but I don't think that they're chocolate. I think that they taste like the pastilles that you make chocolate candy out of, which I imagine it is pretty much that.
Okay.
I'm going to turn this into an eating thing because I've been drinking some stuff that's got me a little bit parched. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I would rank the flavor as kind of the flavor I imagine if my laptop was edible would be, but like sweeter.
That sounds delectable.
It's almost like a flavorless jelly bean.
The chocolate is?
Yeah, there's like a hint of chocolate essence, but that's kind of how I feel Palmer chocolate is. Which is a bummer because the town I was born in is called Palmer, so I want it to be good. Oh, shit. That reminds me, Alaska did some dumb shit, but I'll mention that in a second. The other thing I got are a bunch of poo chows.
Ooh.
So I got a bunch of flavors of poo chow in here, including ramune poo chow, which always great.
Yeah, I'm pretty jealous of that.
Poo chow are fantastic because they're one of the like harder but still gummy things that you can get from Japan. Because a lot of their gummies are actually like decent quality, so they're like better than ours. these ones are specifically pretty stiff, and I don't chew gummies usually. Not even because of like any teeth stuff, just like I've always, I don't know, like dissolved gummies and stuff like that because I don't get any pleasure out of the chewing of them. And these are almost designed for that, I feel like.
That sounds pleasant.
Now we have a... Oh, I also have some cola-flavored Poo Chows, which is my favorite version of soda, honestly. So I have two options here. I think I'm going to go with the less odd one first. I also got Pez dispensers that are a sheep and a rabbit.
Gotta have those.
Well, people know what Pez dispensers are, so. So I got these specialty Oreos.
Are they just egg-shaped, or is there a specific flavor going on as well?
There's 5 egg shapes in here. They're variations on egg designs, but they also have like imprints that kind of look like rabbits and stuff like that. So these are pretty standard, like as far as Oreo goes for the like cream part. The cookies though taste like Fruit Loops. So with the cream and the cookie, it basically just tastes like you're having Fruit Loops, which has been better than I expected. Because again,
that sounds good.
I'm not a big cereal person, but I like the flavor, and if I can have a small version of it, that's pretty cool. So those I would suggest if you find them, just because, especially if you don't eat a ton of cookies at once, that's a pretty good way to go. This last thing, though, so this is Jelly Belly candy cones.
Ooh.
Here's a chart for people watching. It is 5 flavors, and you have
French vanilla.
You have white topped ones are French vanilla. Orange ones are orange sherbet, or sherbet, because there's infinite ways that stuff exists. I know they're different things, but sherbet, and what's the other one? There's like a third.
Sorbet.
And some versions of the Italian version of it. There's also
gelato.
Italian. Yeah, gelato and Italian ice. All of those things are like variations on a theme of ice cream, but I don't remember the differences. There's one that's just strawberry, one that's just chocolate, and then a mint chip. So the key to these, I think the vanilla one was the one I liked the most. So the key to these is that the top is a flavor.
They're shaped like ice cream.
Yeah, but the bottom is flavored like waffle cone. So you actually have like a weird sort of cinnamony, like other piece to all of them. And they taste, I did put that back together. They taste bizarre. See if I can. The texture is not that different from the Palmer chocolate.
Which you described as a jelly bean, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So, like, it is pretty accurate. I feel like in these, though, they were going for accuracy and not necessarily for flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what I mean is the waffle cone does taste like waffle cone. Like, it's almost got, like, a very slightly, like, salt and waffle flavor to it. And the ice cream does taste like the ice cream they're aiming for. But usually you don't take an ice cream cone, turn it sideways, and jam it all into your mouth at once. And usually there are not equal parts of both things.
Yeah.
And I think that their attempts to make something that accomplished the mission of being two accurate-ish flavors for like their weird chemical experiments that they do. They didn't stop to think, is this going to be a good flavor profile when you jam it all into your mouth?
Yeah. They didn't stop to think, should we?
Right. So my stupid suggestion is you should separate them all into 2 pieces and have yourself a cone time and an ice cream time. I don't think that's a good suggestion, but I think that that's my suggestion.
I love the idea of a cone time. That sounds great.
I also got, as I showed you, this fine Dutch Brothers sticker in that box. You can see the logos on the back.
Yes.
I like this sticker quite a bit, actually. I'm going to put it on my laptop, but like I do with most of my stickers, I'm going to go ahead and just cut the Dutch Brothers logo off it. Because since I make stickers, I never look at a sticker and think, oh man, I got to put all of that on there. Which is very helpful. I have removed logos from many stickers because, I don't know, I listen to Rage Against the Machine or whatever.
That's a good idea.
So now here's this fine drink. Problematically smooth, I would say.
Ooh.
It basically just made whiskey wine.
Okay.
In proof of this.
Oh my.
That is not an issue at all. You could drink this very quickly. So maybe people shouldn't do that for safety reasons. If you half and halved what would be about a sixth of a carton and a half a bottle of whiskey, you could probably just chug it, and that seems real bad. One of the few things that keeps whiskey kind of safe is that if you chug it, you like start to cry all over and get like physically turned inside out as a human being.
Yeah.
And the fact that that stopped all of that from happening is not good.
Well, now that you've ensured that we're demonetized, I want to try that now. Maybe I'll pick some up at the store when I go later.
Oh, these assholes. I was just about to say, you know, I've been drinking a little bit, and I also am like, I don't know. When we do this, it's usually when I think about like, I could order food. That's a cool idea. We usually go until the evening, and I'm not going to cook. I am going to cook, honestly, but probably later than necessary. As we are talking in the last 30 seconds, I got a pop-up on the side of my screen saying Seamless has sent you a $10 coupon. So I'm probably going to do that. What I actually was doing last night when I walked around for an hour and like looked at all of the stuff in town was I was also taking photos of all of the take-home menus and phone numbers and websites.
Nice.
And Zeke's Pizza in Kirkland is currently doing a thing where they are they're essentially taking all of their, I think they were the ones, they're like taking their delivery charges off like all of their stuff.
Oh, really?
Let me check just to make sure.
I'm jealous.
Man, there's some good like food deals. I know that that's a bad sign for like the food in actuality. But also, yeah, the I want to say their name because I think that they're really cool and they should get more people anyway. Oh, come on.
Zeke's. Yeah, I've been there I think once when I lived there, and it was really good.
Zeke's is good. What I actually was meaning to mention was Lai Tai.
Oh yeah, they're
so
really
Lai
good too.
Lai Tai is currently open from 11 to 8 as takeout and delivery. But what they have going on there, and I'm going to hold it up to the screen because it's not a great quality picture anyway, is they are currently doing a mango rice dessert that looks fucking amazing. And man, that sounds good. How's it going over there? Oh, you can see in the back
here.
In the back, some of your hair is definitely lighter.
Oh yeah, the roots took the lightning whatever really great. So at certain angles, it almost looks like I'm balding, and that's super cool because that's what I wanted.
That's been me since 13. They also have currently. I'm just going to read them off because I think it's impressive. Keeping in mind, this is good quality. I've had this food. Yellow, red, Panang, green, Masuman, jungle, prawn, pineapple, chapu, kaboka, and roasted duck curries are all on offer. Roasted duck is $16, which is always the most expensive. The rest of them are all $12. And kaboka or kabocha, I honestly don't know the pronunciation. That stuff is great. That's like a salted spiced melon, or sorry, not melon, melon squash. So they like basically turn it into, I don't know. The only way to describe it for me is like almost savory apple slices. Like they're incredibly good.
Yeah.
But I have been periodically this morning. I was just looking at their curry menu, like. I could do that anytime. I could make curry come to my house.
That's been my like, I'm bored. What should I do? Oh yeah, look at menus.
Yeah. But yeah, so Zeke's is doing takeout. They also are offering growlers for takeout, which is useful for drinkists. Oh man, I missed the. Oh no, there it is. So the one I actually was impressed by. So Hector's is like sort of a upscale-ish place in Kirkland.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a thing where they are giving 100% of all food and beverage sales to the Kirkland Nourishing Network. So presumably,
what is that? What is that?
So the Kirkland Nourishing Network, I believe, is almost like a feed people who can't afford it style thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
But yeah, their whole situation on that is really cool. I haven't gotten to have Hector's yet, but I've considered trying to get takeout for it, just because that seems like a really good thing to do.
Yeah. That's great because they are a little more like upscale. I feel they're a little more pricey.
And maybe the biggest news of going out there and checking everything. So, granted, 3 stores did close, but like 3 out of like close for good. I mean, 3 out of probably like 25 or 30 places is less than I expected for when they had like a month and a half of guaranteed, like limited to no sales.
Yeah.
One of those places was a wedding place, which was the initial thing that had me like, well, that's not great, because I work at a place that focuses on some wedding stuff. But I walked around and the 2 or 3 other wedding places are like doing fine. So I think it was more that they just weren't going to keep going. Also, they're a wedding place, but they mostly did hair. So like kind of different from the stuff that happens for, where I work. Yeah. I'll cut hair. I'll fucking cut your hair if you need to.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
The other thing I'm excited about that I got in that package, though, is a gourmet herb blend of seeds.
Ooh, that's fun.
From the Peace Health Southwest Medical Center. So I'm excited to grow some of that stuff because I have soil I also have been saving these. This is what the cherry tomatoes come in that are fully covered from this QFC. And they are just like planter pots. Like that's all they are. So I have a collection of these. And because I'm an insane person, I'm going to go through the herb mix, separate the seeds out, and plant them separately into their own pots. Because why not?
Yeah, that's fun. I actually just planted some herbs outside too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
These are going to be inside.
Inside. I'm actually thinking I probably should have started mine inside. Although I have them in the planter. I don't know if I showed you a picture of this, but my dad built me a really cool like tiered planter. So
you did,
there's
yeah.
the base, yeah, and then like a smaller middle, and then the top is the smallest. And I think I planted rosemary in the top, and I know the base was basil because I love basil. I eat basil on everything. I wanted the most of that. And I think the middle, can't remember what the middle is. Some other herb that I eat.
I'll be honest, just as a side note, the biggest blow to my personal life during this whole crisis has been I can't get fresh herbs as readily. So when I roast things, I'm having to use dried herbs to do it, and what a bummer.
Not the same. It's not the same.
This brought to you by our privileged moment of the podcast. These dry herbs.
Yeah. Speaking of privilege, just because I wanted to make sure I talked about this for a little bit before we wrap things up. One thing that I saw in the last few weeks I thought was pretty funny / interesting. Have you seen this whole like Karen is a slur controversy?
No, I have seen a lot of Karen business, but I like making fun of Karen. So what is this? Is this the new boomer shit?
Yeah. I think this is actually more last week than this week. But
okay.
There were, and by controversy, I mean like maybe it trended on Twitter for 2 hours.
Yeah, what you mean is
about it a week
the
later.
internet mentioned it more than like 50 times, so now everybody knows about
it. Exactly. There were some people on Twitter upset that people were using the term Karen and saying that when you call someone a Karen, it's really just like a coded misogynistic way of persecuting women who are okay with standing up for themselves and being like against the status quo, and being like loud. I don't know. It's just stupid. I like obviously it. If you're getting offended about the idea of someone calling you a Karen, it's amazing to me that there are people who are doubling down on that instead of being like, maybe I should change my behavior. I've seen a lot of like, or not a lot, but somewhere on Reddit, I can't remember, I saw this, some like feminist subreddit. I don't remember the name of it, but people were like, it's so misogynistic for people to call women Karens. And I'm like, I feel, just my personal experience, when I see people calling other people Karens, more often than not, I've seen it being like women saying that to other women.
Yeah.
But
I don't see a lot of guys making reference to, can I see your manager hair? Like, that's not really... Yeah.
I feel like that's more of a like our territory.
Yeah. I think it's really funny, but like, I don't think it's necessarily gendered towards like the sayings are gendered. The people saying it are not.
Right.
But it's definitely not calling somebody a bitch. Like, it's not going out on the street and yelling at somebody in like gendered terms.
Yeah. And the implication with a Karen or like calling someone a Karen isn't like the problem with being the Karen isn't the fact that you're a woman. It's the fact that you're being a dick to like service industry people for no reason.
Like I can say securely that I have at least one parent that has been a Karen in the past. And like it bothers me, and I think that having a term for it is good. But also counter sort of to that whole suggestion that it's a bad thing because apparently tomorrow's N-word is Karen. I think we should just start referring to more men as Karen as well. I'm fine with that. That seems like a good, like, why don't we just take the gender aspect out of it, and men who complain about shit should also be Karen from now on. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm okay with calling guys Karens if they're acting like a Karen.
Yeah.
It's fine. I also, to that point, did my best Karen Bob that I could pull off today. So that's my theme.
It's Karen. Not. It doesn't have the aggression. I feel like there's.
I know. I need like a steeper angle here.
Yeah. But I definitely see the inspiration. This is me just eating the goop.
Okay, I was wondering, for a second it looked like a large communion cracker, which I would also have been okay with. I really like communion crackers. I actually need to find, if anyone knows this, or knows of a source for this, please email us at thisweekspodcast@gmail.com. But, it's thisweekspodcast@gmail.com. God, someday I will know our own email. I would really like to know the source for communion crackers because I could just eat them all the time because I like them. They're good.
The secret of communion wafers is that they are a very common thing in Asian countries as a snack. So you can actually get them from Hawaiian food places or like Japanese and I think like Taiwanese places have them a lot. And they are just sold because the thing that's so good about them is the glazing, like that, like slightly like abrasive like rice glaze that they have.
Yeah.
So that is actually an aspect of crackers that they make. And if you look for like glazed rice crackers or rice crackers and find the ones that look right with that sheen, that's literally what you're buying is that same flavor.
That makes sense.
When I was in Hawaii, I got teriyaki communion wafers essentially that were like an inch long, and they were the best. Like my roommate and I were driving around Hawaii, and I had like a little sack of those in the car, and I would just like reach down occasionally and like eat this giant ass communion wafer.
Just doing communion all day long.
All day. Really, when you're in a car, you're on your knees for the Lord. That's pretty much the same thing. It's like a pew, especially if you're taller. I guess that only works for me, but
I've never made that connection before, but yeah, you're right. That is essentially just what they are. And that makes sense because I love rice crackers too. So, although also there is another kind, there's like a few variations of communion crackers that I've had. So there's the kind that is like more of a rice cracker.
Yeah.
And then at the old mega church that I used to go to, it was like this big, and they're just like flat. I don't know if you would say like unleavened crackers, where they're just real dense little nuggety things. There's no like glaze or rice cracker essence to them. They're more like floury.
So, have you had matzo bread before?
I don't think so.
That's all that is.
Is that what that is?
Matzo bread's also incredibly cheap. It's like literal. You can get a like a square package of it that's like a bunch of big sheets, and you can buy that for usually like $3. Like they're specifically made very cheap because they're supposed to be that style of thing.
I will look into this.
But I have had stores of both matzo bread and rice crackers in the past because I agree they are extremely good. But usually I'll just have saltines on hand for that craving. But definitely go on like whatever shippable Asian food market you have, and you will find what you need. And most Asian food markets also have like a Hebrew section of some kind. In the U.S. at least.
Yeah, I think I have seen that, like at Ojimaya.
Mm-hmm. So you can find both at a lot of those places.
Well, yay. No, problem solved. Okay, nobody needs to tell us now in our email. Jesse solved my problem.
If you have the best places to get them or the best crackers to buy, definitely let us know because I would like that information as well.
Yes, I love a dense cracker. That's what I like. Is I want it to be very crunchy because I like Ritz crackers okay and saltines are okay, but it just doesn't have like the I like it when there's a I don't know, I'm making this motion, but like you know what I mean. It's got some like.
It's like eating a crock, a nice, thick, slightly, like a little give to it, but ultimately pretty crunchy.
Yes, crunch. Yeah. That's what I want. I want it to like snap and crunch.
Yeah.
And all the other, what is the name for that word? Is that onomatopoeia? What am I thinking of? Okay, good.
If something is onomatopoetic, it is... resembling the sound it makes through language or whatever. That's what you mean?
Yes. I'm having difficulty remembering words because this is the first time that I've talked to somebody in about 4 days.
Yeah, we usually have movie nights and you have been busy with work all week. So
yeah,
I imagine that could become a problem.
Reactivating the parts of my brain that do social interaction. Side note, grocery stores for people like myself who aren't a fan of social anything, like have social anxiety issues, it's worse. The social distancing makes it worse. It's not better. You would think it's better because you're farther away from people. No, it's much worse because then someone's standing in front of a thing you need to get at and they won't move and you're like trying to keep your distance. And of course in my head the scariest possible outcome is that I go, "Excuse me," which will never happen. Yeah, so that's been a nightmare. But
I'm going very little for grocery store stuff, but when I do, I try to treat it as though the people who are there are just obstacles to me getting the stuff I need and leaving, and treating it almost like I'll like go with a list and I'll just, if I see somebody in the aisle I'm going to go down, I'll just go on to the next thing.
That's what I do. Yeah. I do appreciate that some grocery stores have done like the kindergarten thing of putting stickers on the floor.
Yeah.
I really like that. That helps like ground myself while I'm in that situation a little bit. So
if people had less I don't know, less problem with being told exactly what the rules are, I think that would actually be a good idea for most things.
I would.
If I went to a public building where I needed to, like, say, get a license or something, if they just had even more like, here's the list, go here and tell this person your name, sit here, it should be about this long, we will say your name at this area, and then we will lead you everywhere you need to go. Perfect. I don't need to feel smart if I'm getting something done that's necessary.
Yes.
I just want it to be efficient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like taxes. Can we do that with taxes, please? Why do I have to guess at things? I guess I'm not really guessing, but it just, I hate that. There needs to be more step-by-step lists of what to do and how to do it. Needs to be more normalized and commonplace, because it would really cut back on me having to pick up on social cues as opposed to just understanding what I'm supposed to do.
I think this is also an aspect of us being artsy people, is that we are always expecting a curveball, which is to our detriment mostly, but like, if we did make everything very clear and very like step by step for everything, almost guaranteed it would get rid of a lot of the loopholes that people with more power and more like information get to just do whatever they want, which is probably why it wouldn't happen.
The greatest currency in the world is just not caring how what you're doing is affecting other people.
Yeah.
And just generally having blind confidence in yourself. That's the easiest way to go through life. And guess what? I don't have either of those. Or I guess the first one, I do care about other people. The blind confidence, not so much. So, it's been great.
Well, yeah, we both want other people to have decent lives, and we both do not have confidence that we are doing things the right way. So we're at a disadvantage for both of those things. And the option to fix it is either convince everybody else that they should make things more that way, which is unlikely, or stop caring about anything and just be assholes, which is also not going to happen. So we kind of just have to find our own way with that shit.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just get a really angular haircut and call it good.
Yeah, I'm going to get a tight bob and start, and some really straight bangs.
I'm considering it.
Yeah.
I'm considering it. I'm thinking about it, but I'm trying really hard not to fuck it up too much.
I don't think I have any pictures from when I had bangs, but it's powerful. It does really give you an air.
I would love access to those, especially for our Instagram.
Yeah, I think specifically there just aren't pictures of it.
Okay.
It was also a girlfriend gave me a haircut incident.
I see.
Where I had like 4 haircuts at once, basically, of like, I had like bangs, I had weird layers, I had like spots that were just incorrect for like shape of head. But like, you know, it was also free. And at the time I was working part-time at a toy store, which I'm going to say does not pay very well.
Yeah.
And I was living in partially subsidized housing in a studio with one other person. So like, and they were working for a nonprofit as a like half internship to like help kids learn music. So essentially we were not paid for anything, and we were trying to like be good people, and then it turned out that you don't get to do that.
Yeah, that's not so much an option.
And then we got bed bugs because the person next door to us in the building didn't give a shit about anything. And it turned out that they like, we thought, because we had been buying like people's like not used, but like people had like bought yarn and then given it to a thrift shop because they weren't going to use it, I guess. And then that was what we ended up getting because yarn was too expensive to do crafts that my partner was doing at the time. And we ended up with bed bugs, and our initial thought was, oh, that yarn must have been fucked up. And then it wasn't. Like, after going through everything, it seemed like this is actually fine. There's no real indication that there's a problem with this, but there is a spot that's like in the hallway that is like leading from their door to ours. And they don't care. So as sort of a preparation for stuff like the whole COVID thing, we got to treat our whole living arrangement where we already had no money as though we were also like filthy people who didn't deserve to live like normal human beings. At one point we had to have all of our belongings in trash bags shoved to the center of the one room we lived in, and everything that was cloth we ran through a dryer on high heat, and anything that survived that we got to put in a trash bag and save for later. And that process took about a month, where we were just like basically sleeping on a carpeted floor in a tiny room next to a person who didn't care about the bed bugs they had. And that was also around the same time that there was a shooting in Seattle where the cops, like right outside our building, decided to shoot dead a guy who did totem pole carvings down by the market because mostly of racism. He was deaf and also had a carving knife like holstered on him, and happens to be Native American, so very scary. And they just shot him because, you know, he existed. That time was fun. But you know, you get to know a lot of your friends really well during those times in life because you spend a lot of time other places. I guess that's a fun history. I don't know.
I think, I guess we're sort of getting to learn a lot about each other just in the same place. I like the eyes on that. The head kind of reminds me of those Littlest Pet Shop figurines.
This looks like a side character. Whoa, what the fuck? Okay. So, first off, this looks like a VeggieTales like background character.
Yes.
Secondly, so this is the lamb, right? Like that's clearly a lamb of some kind. Here's the image for it on the back.
That's not.
That's not accurate.
That's not correct.
Huh. Collect them all, but it's going to be tough because they look different.
That doesn't even look like the rest of them, the picture.
No, that's clearly like a database that they had all the pictures of all the Pez dispensers on, and they typed in a name and got that. They were like, oh, that's fine. That'll do.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Oh, boy. Well, do we have anything in
I do. So
of today?
I actually wanted to mention something. So did you listen to any of the Alex Jones based things this week?
I did listen to that one podcast.
Knowledge Fight?
Yes.
Something that was brought to my attention by that podcast that I had not heard because I don't think anybody's dumb enough to be saying it. Did you hear the one where I think it was from Thursday night / Friday morning?
Yeah, I think I listened to it.
Where he tries to make the case that what's actually happening is that all hospitals are empty and all of the health workers are having giant orgies, and that's what's really happening because they know the end of the world's coming.
That's the most believable storyline, I think. When you think about what's most likely to be happening, that's at the top of my list.
It makes it sound like hanging out at the hospitals would be fucking fantastic. It also makes it sound like... Also, it's specifically all of the health workers don't have to do anything because nobody's sick. Yeah. They're just denying service to mostly it sounds like men that have issues that need help because men are oppressed in this nation, according to the Alex Jones thought.
Of course.
That's what I thought you were talking about with the balls issue that you started
with.
No. Because they always have like out of context drops at the start of Knowledge Fight, and the one for that episode is "They're coming for your balls." But it's been made clear this week in Alex Jones land that not only does he believe that all health workers are hanging out in the hospitals and laughing about how people can't get medical help and watching Netflix and porn and having orgies, but they are also part of a larger campaign specifically to disempower and demonize men, which I think is the most insane conspiracy theory ever. But I'm also, there is a sound bite from earlier this week, which I think perfectly encapsulates. Welcome to the podcast where we explain the things we like about other podcasts. This is technically about Alex Jones and not that podcast because they don't talk about this. It's just in the sound clip. There is a point at which he is talking about how much he is pissed off about everything because, of course, he is. He's Alex Jones. If you've heard him at all, you know that that's his thing. And he oftentimes gets mad at his audience for not buying his garbage enough because his show is mostly to sell his garbage. There is a weird thing that I've only heard once from his show, either through that podcast or listening to Alex Jones clips or episodes on my own, which I would not suggest. It's rough. And he says that people aren't doing their job, and that's why he's losing money. And it's in reference to people's job being buying his stuff. And I have never heard him say that before, but it was the most clear, like, garbage thing I've ever heard from him of, like, he thinks of people as, like, a funding tool, and that's literally it. Their job is to give him money so that he can keep doing the things he likes to do.
Yeah.
And that's the extent.
That's it. I truly don't understand how he has any actual listeners that follow and respect him, because if you, and I have not listened to his actual show, I just listened to the clips on that podcast. If you listen to any, like,
I support Knowledge Fight. I was just saying it because I was not thinking about the name.
But if you listen to, like, different clips from his show over time, you realize he has no actual respect for his listeners at all.
No.
He, in the way that he, like, strings together his arguments and, like, will have someone on the show who he talks to who has a different opinion than him of, like, coronavirus, and then he comes away from the interview like, yeah, they're correct too. Like, it'll be directly directly contradicting whatever he like previously says, and then he's like, yeah, but that can be true too. And then he has, oh god, I can't remember what the exact clip was, but one thing that drove me fucking nuts is he had one long extended rant about how, like, they're making fun of people wearing masks, essentially, and saying that, like, the globalists want you to wear these masks, and if you wear a mask, it's a sign that you're oppressed and you're, like, getting cucked by wearing a mask, whatever. But he follows that long rant up by saying, by the way, we're selling masks. They're being restocked. So if you want to pre-order some InfoWars masks, we have it. Like,
and they're branded with InfoWars, but he says that he wanted to get it to say like fraud on it or something weird like that. And it's ridiculous.
He clearly thinks that, and I think to a degree correctly, anybody that is listening to his podcast has to be, I don't know, not thinking logically through his arguments, or just being dumb.
Well, I've said this before, but you should. The most palatable way to do it is to go through Knowledge Fight's old episodes.
Yeah.
If I see it, I'll tell you which ones. But there is a set of episodes that go over his what's it called? The court proceeding where they make you defend your opinions. Deposition.
Yeah.
So they have a breakdown of his deposition, and Paul Joseph Watson and the other asshole who works there who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Something?
Yeah, Owen Schroyer. They are both also deposed, so they have like questioning for all three of them. The thing that comes out of it that is most interesting about Alex Jones is that it is the second time in court that he has been forced to talk about his process. And his process is very clearly, he believes that his intuition is him being psychic. And that his personal thoughts are what's real, and the rest of the world is being poisoned by aliens.
Yeah.
And even if you think that he's a huckster, which he is, or like a fraud, which he is taking advantage of people and also believing that he has like the direct hookup to essentially what's really happening, which I think is actually more dangerous than a lot of the people who are like just trying to trick people. I think he's trying to trick people, and he also believes that he's like all powerful in a weird way.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of, I think, some mental illness at play with him, and it's sad to see so many people rally around him and just go along with it because it's working financially.
Yeah.
Not that he's not culpable, because he's obviously a dickhead, but just I think in one of the more recent episodes he did have like a couple minute break where he was saying like, oh yeah, sometimes when people tell me a joke, I won't even get it because I'm like up here playing 4D chess in my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just, he's like, I think about things in such literal terms. Sometimes I don't even get jokes because it's like, I can't even think of it that way.
Interesting. You know, you could refer to that as like an undiagnosed, just general mental difference from people.
Yeah, just sounds like you're not a neurotypical guy. That's kind of what that sounds like to me. But okay, proceed having psychic readings from the aliens or whatever. Yeah,
that's my new superpower. Is I take things literally no matter what they are.
My superpower is not understanding jokes and taking them too literally. He used the line 4D chess. Like very specifically.
Seriously used it. Yeah.
Which is great.
That's
also really sad.
On the great and sad spectrum, so I think if you can avoid Facebook, you should. But I also think that there's a lot of people who are not doing that yet. And if you want to, say, communicate with them, sometimes that's your only choice. Mm-hmm. So I have things auto-post to Facebook from like Instagram so that my family can see it, because I have a lot of family and many of them are not ever going to look anywhere except Facebook.
Yeah.
But I also will occasionally post links to things the way an idiot posts to Facebook anyway. Like, here's this podcast or here's this video that people might like. And so people who already agree with me anyway will watch it and tell me it's cool. It's not useful, but what Facebook is really useful for is being able to go see what the argument is across like a wide spectrum. Don't ever use one person, but like just check into like a topic and see like what is the most egregious version of this that's coming out, and then you can double check it with other things like the actual internet or your Reddit or Twitter or whatever else to like sort of get more of a clear picture of at least the online discussion. And since Facebook is based around the idea of taking the most aggravating information and pushing it as far to the top as possible, it's the fastest way to see what those arguments are to try and check in and see if they're real. And there's better ways to do that, but it's the fastest and laziest way for me to do it, so that's why I do it that way. There is currently, so up until about, well, it's still going around, but from the year 2015 until a few weeks ago, at least, there was a chain letter going around about a bunch of misinformation about like who did what and who put like certain laws into place that largely don't exist. And if you have conservative relatives, you will probably see this chain letter pop up in their stuff. And it's dumb. It's not really worth going over, but it's a lot of like, here's the part of this amendment that sort of exists that says that like the president can do this, or says that like socialism is actually illegal, or whatever they feel like putting into it. Just ignore the flopping dick. The current one that's going around is like essentially a fake medical chain letter saying that all the things that Trump said about disinfectants is actually true. It's just a more complicated medical procedure. And at the bottom of like a 8-paragraph thing, it says, I copied this from somebody else, something, basically something that is legally like, this could be different, but it's literally the like part of the copied letter that I've seen a bunch of people use now, that just says like, well, really, we can just inject like hydrogen peroxide into people's lungs. And if you do it wrong, sure, it's going to kill people, but like, he is saying real things. And it's this whole like garbage thing of like, do you have a second source? Do you have a not like third hand option? Do you have anything that you could show other than this thing that's like, the president's amazing because this chain letter exists? I think a key to trying to combat the giant wave of garbage ignorance online would honestly be breaking up Facebook, because that's the easiest and most boomer accessible thing for people to use. And even just the effort of deciding, do I want to use the internet or do I want to just fucking talk to people on text messages or whatever service I want, would make such a difference. Like, the amount of like distilled information that people can use against trusting their kids who actually live in the world right now, and not their fucking friends who read some garbage that was written by malicious kids somewhere else, would be so much more like helpful in pushing a progressive movement.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my mini rant for getting towards a closing. Man, it's really nice out today.
It has been here too.
Yeah. It was raining a lot yesterday, and I also enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think it's yesterday. Evan and I went for a walk at like 10 o'clock or something. It was sprinkling outside, and that was really pleasant.
I assume Evan had a button-up shirt and a blazer on?
By then, I think we had graduated to sweatshirts and sweatpants. But
okay. That works too.
Mm-hmm.
Just every time I see images of him, it's in a blazer, so that's how
Really?
I
That's so
envision it
funny.
now.
That's really funny because I don't think he's actually ever worn that outside of the apartment. He wears it. He like puts the outfit together because he wants to, but
Yeah.
he's like afraid that it doesn't look good on him, so he hasn't worn it out yet. But he really likes it.
He should just wear it. It looks fine. Like
It does look good. It's the like shirt and blazer combo that I think he's insecure about. But yeah, he should just do it.
I have a blazer, and when well, it's like it is a dress shirt, or a dress jacket, I guess. And it's not a blazer exactly. It's a little bit like altered, but I don't know. Like the design of those things is to go with anything, and I do think it looks like you're trying to send a certain message, but I also think part of fashion that I respect the most is that creating a certain look for anybody is actually the whole point. Like there is a very egalitarian aspect to being able to afford and dress a certain way no matter who you are. And most of that discomfort that I've had in the past has been because I know I'm a poor piece of shit. So when I wear something that looks like it's not a poor person's clothing, I feel like I'm lying to people. But like those people don't know that, and they shouldn't. They should just accept you as a person anyway. So I think it's imperative that he wears the blazer outside.
Send a message. Yes, yeah. I agree. Evan's approach to fashion is very interesting because he doesn't like the idea of using fashion as a way to express yourself.
Oh, okay,
which sounds he just thinks it's like dumb. Which is funny contrasted with me, who is very like I'll wear any dumb shit to express myself.
Yeah.
But
I think you definitely at least give the aura of using your fashion as a canvas for how you are thinking about things at that moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna like tell you, so
yeah,
might as well show it on the outside. Hence the soon-to-be orange hair. It's a showing an externalization of the chaos.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I wear things like I don't know, like I walked into a dump and found all the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works.
Also, this shirt came in the box.
Oh, that's a good shirt. I also like your head ribbon. Whatever is happening.
This is holding my my hair back so that it doesn't flop around as much.
Oh, okay. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, I wore it while I was walking around last night too, because like I don't need hair all over my face while I'm trying to like avoid touching my face for an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
It is helpful, but I don't know. I'm not super self-conscious about things anymore, but there's still that tinge of like, can I do this outside and not have people be like, the fuck's that guy's problem? But the real reality of it is that people are going to do that anyway, so like it doesn't matter. Yeah. Also, I live in Karen Town. The only place that's more Karen Town is potentially Bellevue, and
they're working on it.
Yeah, the fact that I look the way I look in general puts me in that category, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that we've solved the world's problems and condemned Alex Jones.
You learned about the Matrix.